Well, good morning, everybody. After we spend just a moment talking about the recent severe weather outbreak, plus the dust storm and the heavy snows to the north, I'm going to continue to show you that this pattern is very active, and we do have risk again of wildfires. We have red flag warnings that spread across the central U.S., and there's more snow on the backside of the next system. Thankfully, going into this week, the severe weather threat is much less than it was a week ago. Next, we will be covering some of the new long-range updates. I'm going to talk about the risk of getting cool at the beginning of April. And I'm also going to talk to you about the new long-range European weeklies that just came out. We're going to finish with a bit on South America, look at some NDVI data there, and then we will go to the new IRI multi-model probability forecast, which will give us a seasonal update all the way through summer. And there's some interesting things I see in that around the Black Sea area that I want to talk to you about. So all that's at the very end. Let's get back to the first map you've been looking at, which are storm reports. This was on the 15th. Nearly 900 reports of severe weather damage on the 15th, including 46 tornadoes. Now, some of these were very strong that ripped across parts of the Midwest and Mid-South, and it was followed the next day when the Storm Prediction Center issued a high risk down here in parts of Mississippi and Alabama with another 41 tornadoes. Then we went into the day yesterday on Sunday. You can see the storm system hitting parts of the Northeast with over 330 reports of severe wind damage here, stretching from parts of the Ohio Valley into the Northeast. My colleague Andrew Pritchard did put together a map of all of it this morning, just looking at the nearly 1,500 reports of severe weather we experienced. And as I look at this, there is one important thing I want to continue to stress. It's where these severe weather events are. Because if you just kind of find it right in through here, the farther back to the west you go, we're not drawing moisture into this area, and it's very worrisome to me to not be able to get moisture back at this time of year into this area. Now we still have April and May to go through, but you see all the severe weather to the east. The systems are quickly moving to the east and drawing a tremendous amount of dry air on the backside. I did want to show you something, though. This past weekend, just looking at where we had hail measured by radar, numerous areas picking up baseball-size hail out of this. In fact, if I just kind of zoom in here a bit, just to kind of focus in on the south and southeast, some of these streaks, as you see coming through here, produced baseball-size hail. One went right through Owensboro, Kentucky, just as one example, but a lot of piles. I saw videos of just piles of small hail out of these pretty powerful storm systems that rip through. When we put it all together, though, the last week did this in terms of precip. We really hammered parts of the Pacific Northwest, specifically Northern California and Oregon. A lot of snow into the Sierra Nevada. Again, we talked about that on Friday, pushing them, toward and through this miracle March, which is just adding much needed moisture to the state of California. Arizona, just look at this moisture here. A lot of this snow in the upper levels or higher elevations here. But my eye just continues to be drawn to this feature. And I can also see it drier in here as well. And as I just get concerned about that, it's just about, okay, does spring undo these holes? Because they need to be undone. Now, some places did pick up, instead of rain, they got some snow out of this. And if you just look back over the last 72 hours, now this was through last night, we saw snow that came in through here. In fact, some places like in northern only picked up 3 or 4 inches of snow. Got a little bit of dusting where I live in Champaign, but look at the backside of this in Minnesota, parts of the Dakotas. Remember, this is an area that this winter has been in snow drought. We talked about it on Friday. We looked at the Colorado Basin. We looked at the Sierra Nevada. But we had some places here in the Cascades that grabbed, 4 to 5 feet of snow just this weekend. And remember, last week we hit the Sierra Nevadas pretty hard with a lot of snow. But this area I keep coming back to, we could see it here on satellite. This is going back on the 14th. This is about midday. Just look at the sheer size of this dust storm that was just rolling out of parts of New Mexico through Texas and Oklahoma. And then as we watch the whole animation here, this is just, watch it again. Look at the size of this. Now, as we got into the day on Saturday, so this was Friday, as we saw the sunset and got into the day on Saturday, this dust actually made it all the way up into southern Canada. And many of us that were here in the Midwest had very kind of eerie, hazy skies. I tweeted out about it just because it was amazing to see dust from here spreading all the way across the Great Lakes states. And as we get into the forecast today, just take a look at this. This is kind of early this morning. I've been up kind of early. My daughter's leaving on a trip. She's going to go sing in New York City. And so we've been up since about 2:30. So it's 4:30 a.m. right now. And you can just see, look at this wide area of red flag warnings here. And then underneath it, right in through there, we've got winter storm watches that have been issued. We have flood issues going on in the Northeast. We can come over here to the west as this next system comes in. A lot of areas with winter storm warnings, winter weather advisories, strong winds. And this just continues to be a very, very active pattern as we move forward here. So let's get into this, again, this threat area that I've been so focused on. We're going to focus today on the fire weather threat, pretty large area of critical fire threat. But look at tomorrow, if we just get you into Tuesday, another day of extreme fire risk in this area. And again, the dryness combined with the very, very strong winds are what's really kind of making this a problem. So using our 6Z high-res NAM forecast, this is just a look at the winds predicted through midday Wednesday. And again, we've got a lot of 50s and 60s coming off of the Rockies broad area in here. 40, 50, 60 mile an hour wind gusts are expected. Question about this next system is it going to draw any moisture into it as it goes across the country? And I'll show you that in a few moments, but I want you to see that on top of all of this, this is just how dry things are there. So very wet east. We just brought in a tremendous amount of precipitation here. You can see what's going on in the west as well. But there are just pockets where our top 4 inches of soil moisture, when you look at them in terms of a percentile, which again is like a rank, we are still very, very dry in several key areas that are going to let the dust blow and the risk of these fires continue to be high. Looking back over the last 7 days, now remember, these maps always have a 1-day lag, so this is through yesterday morning on Sunday, so we're not getting this, right? We just note how this previous system missed such a large area in the central plains of the United States. And as we get into this system that's coming through, okay, the frontal boundary early this morning is cleared all the way, so that's been much colder air passing behind this system. Many of us saw that here in the east and the Midwest. But what's going on here is this is kind of blocking the ability to return moisture. So do you see this? This is kind of what we talked about last week. This next low that's trying to move through the Midwest is not able to make a good pull on Gulf moisture. It's really pulling more of its flow from Texas, which you just saw is so very dry right now. So that's one of the kind of issues with this next system. It's going to make snow on its northern side. I'll show you that in a few moments. But I'm not going to be able to see moisture get back here. It's going to have to wait until we get more over the Mississippi and Ohio basin to get into that moisture. By the way, I did notice this. We got a low that's spinning way out here. It's kind of south and east of Bermuda. And it's interesting. I went poking around the National Hurricane Center's new website, and it's got some really cool new features. So I'm pretty pumped about this. It's nhc.noaa.gov. And what I did was I just wanted to look to see if, as the front clears the coast, and with that system sitting, again, south and east of Bermuda, we've got some pretty serious wave height out here, some 15-foot swells. So just kind of a neat set of tools that we're going to have at our disposal as we work into this hurricane season. Okay, though, coming back, though, to the U.S., I want to make this point about where the moisture is for this next system by starting off midday today. This is Monday afternoon. And what we're looking at here is a dew point map. Now, if this next system is going to kick off, again, a big area of severe weather and heavy rain, we need to be seeing these dew point temperatures way up in the 50s and 60s and maybe even above that. But we just don't. In fact, early today, look at all the dry air that's behind the front that just cleared out. There's the frontal boundary here. So this is the lack of a good moisture recovery. So this system tries to open up a nice big warm sector with plenty of moisture, but it's got the heat, but just not the moisture. So maybe by Tuesday, we start to pull some of this in here Tuesday afternoon and evening. But the dry line is pretty far to the east. See that? So that's Tuesday getting into Wednesday, and that dry air just comes right in behind it very quickly. So again, dew point temperature, it's an absolute measure of moisture in the atmosphere. Now I'll show you what this does in a few minutes as it spreads this rain, mainly over the Mississippi and Ohio valleys, southeast and then east coast. But behind it, toward the end of the week, again, more dry air getting pushed into place. But there's a cadence to the systems that are coming across the Pacific Ocean. And here they are. I mean, this is the trough we're just talking about now, coming through. There's the one that's leaving, okay? Then look at this. They're just still lined up here across the Pacific, and there's good westward momentum forcing them to get farther and farther, to the west coast and eventually jump off the Rocky Mountains and build new systems. So here's the next one, right? That is the tail end of this system that just ripped through the midsection of the country here, leaving the east coast. And then as we work our way through the middle of the day today, some light snow spreading through here, but our next system coming in through California and Nevada. See it right there. I'll go back over it. And then this one emerges on Tuesday in the central U.S. Now remember, kind of look at the orientation of the isobars. That's going to tell you that the flow is coming around like this, not like this. So we are pulling dry air out ahead of this. So the moisture that's here is kind of residual, if you will, and we're putting a pretty good squeeze on it, which is what's going to make the snow in parts of Colorado, Wyoming, South Dakota, Nebraska. And then the rain, best chance for maybe our stronger storms, will be here once we get into Wednesday. Maybe a little bit on Tuesday night, but really into Wednesday. So you see, we leave this whole area open for dry conditions again. But take note of the snow on the back side of this next system as we get into the early morning hours on Wednesday. So it's Tuesday night into Wednesday morning that system begins to roll itself up the farther east we go. Now, to pick it up from there, I'm going to flip over to the comparison between the GFS and the European model. These are the 0Z runs. So we've seen through this point, and about the time that system begins to curl up there in maybe Kansas, but definitely Nebraska, Iowa, southern Minnesota, Wisconsin, our next frontal boundary then hits the West Coast. And again, it's just these systems lined up here, one after another, that are doing this. So that would be Wednesday night, getting into early Thursday morning. The system matures. Don't be surprised if there's not some strong winds on the backside of this, driving in some snow farther to the south, out of Wisconsin and Michigan into Illinois, Indiana. So that would be early Thursday morning. Then behind it, high pressure builds in. There's your next low, spreading some snow over parts of the Pacific Northwest into the Northern Rockies. And then we're going to see that system curl up east. Kind of watch it there off the East Coast. And then our next system again. Do you notice where the moisture comes into it? It just keeps building in through here, not back in through there. And so here we are. This is Saturday, and our next low is already on shore in the Northwest. So see, this cadence of systems is very important. And again, where are we? Next Monday. Where's the moisture? Here, not back into this area. And so that seems to be the way that through the next week or so, these next several systems are expected to kind of form. And we're just going to ask, how often is it going to do something like that getting into the rest of the month of March? So I thought I'd start you off on the snow side of this. I'm going to walk you through 4 different models on snowfall. This is the European model 10-day outlook on snow. And you can see in the Northeast, this swath coming out of Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and then what's coming in here into parts of the upper Colorado Basin, the Northern Rockies, the Cascades still adding more, and even more for the Sierra Nevada. Now let's take that analysis and apply it to the GFS. Now, so I'll let you know the GFS 0Z run hammers this area. I mean, it's got big snows coming into parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin with that next system coming through. But look at the difference. And nothing over here in the GFS. So let's go to the AI model. No, MBM first. The MBM, again, is picking up on that heavy swath of snow in through here. This is a good 4 to 6 inches with much heavier snows farther to the north. But again, it's got more coming into the Cascades, Sierra Nevada, Northern Rockies than the GFS and the European did. And finally, we do have the AI model, and this is its 10-day forecast. And again, you can see it's really finding that corridor with adding quite a bit more snow. Now, if we look at the probabilities, this is the chance of getting 3 inches. And I'm just going to start this on Tuesday night going in through Wednesday. So that's when that swath is coming in. Again, Tuesday night, in the day on Wednesday through Thursday. So this is the probability of grabbing 3 inches in through this corridor. We can see as we continue to play, this is now getting into Friday and Saturday. Let's go out there till Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. That's when I have the chance for more northeast snow. We just take this all the way out there to a 10-day outlook. That's your probability of grabbing another 3 inches of snow. Now, we know the amounts are going to be much higher in the west, and you saw those on the previous maps. So I was just kind of focusing on what's coming out here, out of Wyoming, parts of Montana, getting into the central plains and stretching through the western Corn Belt and upper Midwest. All right. Precipitation, total-wise, still quite a bit more coming into the Pacific Northwest. We see that swath you just saw in through there. There's quite a bit of liquid in the snow, which is fantastic. We need this because of just how dry our subsurface soil is. But if you just kind of look at it on the whole, I continue to see holes in this area, in through here as well, where these precip totals are quite low. If you look at the GFS over the same time, so this is the 10-day GFS, that's the 10-day European. Some of these differences are large. I mean, take a look at Minneapolis, for example. European model, 0.44 inches. GFS, 2.21. So you can see the differences in where this next system is going to go is going to be critical. So that's why you can always, where is that dumb map? There it is. You can always go look at this on my website. Here's the URL. Just zoom in there and have a good look at it. Okay, I'll get it live on the site very soon. Or not live, but I'll put the whole map as an animation on the site soon. So let's look at some probability maps, because I kind of pointed out those heavier regions. Look where we're dry. A lot of the southwest, most of the western half of Texas and Oklahoma, and then throughout pockets of the Canadian prairie. This is the probability of staying under 1/10 of an inch over the next 10 days. Here's 1/2 inch. Now the wetter spots, we'll find those pretty quick. That's the probability of going over an inch in the next 10 days. All right. From here, I want to show you where the pattern lands in 10 days. We still have more systems coming into the west, but temporarily we're going to build in this ridge that's going to give us some some flow coming out of the northwest. It's going to be convergent and drier on the backside as systems exit east. But as I look out there farther, I still see the pattern open and moving. That's March 29th, getting into the 30th, and there's still troughs here. There's still a trough there. I think the pattern keeps itself going. But you're going to notice in the week 2 forecast, sorry, let's shrink that up so you can see them. There they are, that there's this drier region in most of the models here. See it? And if you just look, let's zoom in on the European just to see it drier because of that flow. Again, you saw it coming in over the top with the system exiting. So we're going to push some drier air in here. But over the next 2 weeks, this is the European Ensemble's forecast of precipitation anomalies. Now, folks in through here, not going to be upset about this going over a bit drier for a couple of weeks. It's back farther to the west that the problems are really beginning to show up a lot in the forecast models. From there, I do want to give you just the latest update. Remember, we've been looking at this time frame of March 21 to April 21. We're going to stretch this out later this week all the way through the month of April. But we continue to see the models picking up on this dry bias here that extends into the southwest and much more active from the Mississippi Valley, the Ohio Valley into the northeast. And that's been a very consistent theme in the model. Temperature-wise, just take a look at where we've been. March has been very mild. Yeah, I just saw a bunch of cold air come in here after this system, but it was not enough to offset the very mild conditions we had up to this time period. We've been cooler along the west coast to start the month, but that's what's helped initiate such an active pattern. Frost threat over the next 7 days is seen here, so just take a good look at this map, and let's get into what these temperatures are going to do. So from the National Digital Forecast Database, again, look at the major warm-up happening back here. Lincoln may hit 83 today, very, very mild. We then play it forward until Tuesday. This starts to spread throughout more of the Midwest and Northeast. But you know what's behind it. That next system is just lingering, coming out here, and it's got very cold conditions throughout the western U.S. compared to averages. By Wednesday, the system is now moving out. The snow will be out. Remember, the snow is coming right in through here. And then we get out into the day on Thursday and watch the plains again. By Friday into Saturday, another warm-up happening in this area. And it's going to be out there all the way to March 23rd on Sunday. So we look at all of this and I say, well, let's go kind of build this into our matrix here and just see what the models are doing. So the next 5 days, day 5 through 10, day 10 through 15, that's the European. This down here is the GFS, and on the bottom is the ECMWF AI model. And it was interesting, yesterday's AI runs were bringing more of this colder air farther into the Great Lakes states than the new 0Z run did. So we're kind of teasing at some sort of pattern. In fact, if you don't mind, I'm just going to click on this one. We're kind of teasing out some sort of pattern where we stay mild here, but there's maybe some risk of some cooler air at times coming in here, while there'll likely be a cooler bias in the west simply due to snowpack. We've watched the European model do this quite a bit, right? That first week of April, which is what you're looking at here, seems to be dropping in some cooler air here, mild in the plains, the negative feedback in the western U.S. mountains. So I continue to see that in the European, excuse me, but I don't see it in the CFSV2 model. That's the first week of April here, and the second week. It is trying to just blow the doors open with very mild conditions. In fact, I shouldn't draw the arrow coming from that direction. That's wrong. It's trying to keep the coldest air in, eastern Ontario, Quebec, and then the Canadian Maritimes. So this is something we need to pay close attention to, okay? This is very important. If we do get into the month of April following a March which has been quite mild. If we do get into April and we see such mild conditions, this could be an early season signal that we lose the north-south temperature gradient. I brought this up several times recently, but if we lose that north-south temperature gradient, that often is a early season indicator of losing, well, the what we call the thermal wind relationship, what we call the dynamical drive of the jet stream. If you just go over mild and stay mild, we have a lot of happy growers, right? I mean, we're all pretty pumped if we can get into the fields early. We're not battling, letting seed sit in cold ground. But the risk is if we stay so mild so far north that we lose the temperature gradient, which loses the westward momentum. I just want to put that bug in your ear, telling you that I'll be watching it as time goes forward, all right? Okay, next, where do we land in kind of this subseasonal outlook? I'm not getting a strong signal from the MJO. In fact, I don't even know why we're seeing it kind of collapse into null space in the forecasts, as you see here. And the reason I want to make that point is that when I go out and look at the 10-day temperature anomalies or look at the precipitation anomalies, I mean, look at this. I see a whole lot of heavy rain in Indonesia and the islands here, and then coming into Australia. And that tells me that there's got to be, flow doing this, getting rising motion here. That's an MJO phase 4. And I look at it, sorry, I keep coming back to that, and we're very weakly into 4. I mean, is it? I don't know. So I cannot make sense of what seems to be driving this sub-seasonal forecast we're getting from the models. I look, but until I have, you got to have a strong piece of evidence to make a case, and I just don't have that. So sub-seasonal, speaking of it, let me go show you what the newest update is from the CPC. So take note, they've got that mild here, cooler and cooler. So it's very similar to what the Europeans said, and we got our drier, possibly wetter outlook there as well. Take note of the drier forecast they have for Florida too. So I'm piecing this together has been quite challenging, and I just wanted to kind of make that point. But looking for cold air, like really cold air right now, I don't see it across much of the northern hemisphere. So there are shots of colder air coming through, but no deep extended troughs of cold air, which is why we're going to have to watch that first week of April to see what the depth of this could possibly be. All right. So where are we going to finish this forecast? Well, I'm going to take you to South America, and I'm going to show you this frontal boundary that's sliding farther and farther to the north, because that is an area that has been in drought for a while. You can see it here pretty clearly. But if that front can extend into that area, which it's trying to do early this morning, it's going to change up this precipitation pattern. So for the next 7 days into Minas Gerais, we're seeing it, but we're still drier, not dry, but drier all around this. It's also drier in southern Brazil and into Argentina as well. This is what 10 days out looks like, but here's week 2. And that week 2 forecast has painted this wetter for a while. But we're going to call it into question, because what do we know about drought? I mean, drought begets drought. And so can we really overcome this with a frontal boundary to stretch in this area and really make some precip? So I want to talk to you about this area, because the new outlook through the month of April is no longer, I mean, it was these colors up here when I showed you this forecast last week. So it's backed off tremendously. Still showing near normal, maybe slightly wetter than average. But I think the models are not right. I think they're going to miss it. I think there's going to be an issue over here with drought returning. And again, just to make this point, we're watching this area. And if you go look on the NDVI maps, I've pulled off, this is Tocantins, Goiás, Minas Gerais, and then Bahia. Oops, put Bahia back on there. Look at where their NDVI was so high back in January into February and is now outside of the 2001 to 2023 range. So we're seeing signs of stress in this area when using satellite data. So we must consider that going forward. Okay, I have one last thing I want to give you here on Monday. Let's come down a Safari browser, because for some reason their site only doesn't work in Chrome. But can I keep this global for us for a moment here? This is the April, May, June IRI multi-model probability forecast for precipitation anomalies. And why I want to keep it looking like this is because they're suggesting dry conditions in southern Brazil and over in those eastern growing areas. Very dry across our southwest into our south. Then I want you to watch right here around the Black Sea. because you can find the wet areas pretty easily. Let's go into May, June, July. And then let's go into June, July, August. Because as this potential drought scenario moves into the Western Corn Belt, Northern Plains, Upper Midwest, we start to see some risk around the Black Sea. This is Ukraine. This is the Russian wheat belt. And that forecast, I think, must be observed very carefully going forward into summer. Because if we flip this over now to what the temperature pattern might be for summer, very hot. In fact, they've got quite a bit of, make sure you see this. This is the probability of being above normal. This is not anomaly, it's probability. So you can see much above average chance of being hotter than average in some very key growing areas. So we need to take this into consideration and watch this carefully. But I'm going to stop it there. We've got a lot to continue to analyze this week. But with that, I'll wrap it up. I appreciate it. Talk to you tomorrow. Thanks.